Welcome to Thank You for Your Service. You may notice that today we have a different interviewer. The reason for that is our interviewee is Tom Heiser, the normal host of Thank You for Your Service. Welcome to Thank You for Your Service, Tom.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Hey, I got a few questions for you, and I'll start right out with the questions. Where'd you go to high school at?
I went to high school in Waupun, Wisconsin. I was born here in Wisconsin Rapids, and father got a job with the state of Wisconsin in corrections, and when you're a year old, you kind of just go where your dad goes.
Where your dad goes, right?
We moved to Waupun, and that's where I graduated from.
And you graduated right from Waupun. Did you go on to college?
I did go 1 year to the University of Stevens Point, and that was the extent of my college career at that time.
Okay, how come only 1 year?
I was young.
And you wanted to run a little bit, right?
Well, young, and school was fun.
What branch of service did you go into?
Well, after college, I had a low draft number, and being from Fond du Lac County, they were notorious for taking people with low numbers.
Yeah.
So I went down and saw the Army recruiter and signed up to be in the MPs.
Okay, so you did enlist. You weren't drafted, right?
No, I avoided the rush, and I enlisted on my own.
Well, how old were you when you went in the military?
I was 19 years old when I signed the initial papers for the early enlistment program, and when I actually got sworn in, I was 20 years old.
Okay. So one of the questions I was going to ask you is what motivated you to enlist? It was the low draft number, correct?
Exactly. When the numbers are that low, I thought the option should be mine and not the government's.
Not the government's
option.
Were you living? Where were you living when you joined?
I was still living in Waupun. After my year of college, I came and worked at Preway here in Wisconsin Rapids, and then moved back to the Waupun area and was working at a place called Berlin Seating.
Okay.
They made bleachers for high school and colleges.
All right.
And then found a recruiter and went from there.
Did you have any friends enlist with you on a buddy program or anything like that?
No, I did not. I was the only one of our group that enlisted at that time.
Yeah. What did you envision it would be like after you joined?
I didn't really know. You see all the John Wayne movies and the war movies from World War II, and that's the only real touching base with the military that I had. I did have an uncle that was in Korea, and he made it back safe, and I had two uncles that were in the National Guard that actually were activated for the Berlin crisis, so I had a little touch with the military, but not a lot.
Well, let me ask you a question. The first day, what was the first day like when you joined the military?
First day was interesting to say the least. You go down to Milwaukee and you have your physical, and you stay at the world famous half-a-star Antlers Hotel.
Yeah.
And then you're up early on the plane, and basic training was down in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, in the spring. So it rained, snowed, and it got hot.
Kind of like Wisconsin Rapids.
Yeah, a little
in
bit.
A way,
in
with
a
the
way,
rain and snow. Were you nervous, excited, anything like that?
I don't think I was nervous. I was a little apprehensive. You didn't know what was going on, because when you come from a small town like Waupun, it only had 7,000 people, and everybody knew each other forever, and all of a sudden you're in a mixture of people from all states, all backgrounds, ethnic, religious, everything. It was a learning experience. It's an eye-opener, basically, for small-town person.
Exactly, yeah. Let me ask you one other thing. Did you remember anything about your drill instructor?
We had a couple of very, very interesting drill instructors. I remember one of them was from Hudson, Wisconsin. I can't remember his name, but then another drill instructor we had was a guy by the name of Joe Prater. He was younger, not real military. When we were marching and stuff, instead of saying right turn, he'd say right turn, do it. And then you made your turns and left face, right face, and just a little unique
Isn't it funny, though, that you remember his name after all these years?
after all these years.
Where did you go to do your advanced training at?
Well, after, to step back a little bit, I mentioned I was going to join the MPs.
Oh, yeah.
And they said you had to be 5'8". Well, I was 5'10". I said, no problem, I'm in. Well, you get down to Milwaukee and you got this measuring device like they have in the doctor's office where you have a bar coming out.
Right.
Well, I'm looking at this bar and it's kind of tipped like that. So I get in there and he says, well, you signed up for the MPs and you have to be 5'8". You're 5'7". I says, no, I'm 5'10". And the young PFC looks at me and he says, son, he said, this is a piece of military equipment. It is right and you are wrong. So I got a sergeant to come down and I said, asked him how tall he was. He said, well, 6'2", and measured him at 6 foot. And he looked at the PFC and said, this isn't right. And he said, with all due respect, Sergeant, this is a piece of military equipment. It is right and you are wrong. And I kind of thought that I was done. Final measurement I got was 5'7" and 3/4.
So you did get into the MPs?
I did not get into the MPs.
Oh, you didn't? Okay. Well, where'd you go for your advanced training?
I went to Fort Devens, Massachusetts. I was now in the Army Security Agency. And as it was explained to me by the nice people at the recruiting station, is we can't tell you much about it. It's all secret. You're not really in the Army, but you're the Army within the Army, and you don't go to Vietnam.
That was a Benny right there.
That was
huh?
a selling point.
Well, okay. So you went through there. What'd you do for your first duty station? Where was that at?
Well, after the 23 weeks at Fort Devens, I was sent to Germany. The base is called Herzl Base, H-G-R-Z-O base, but the German name for it was Herzogenaurach. And it was an old Luftwaffe air base that had never got bombed in World War II, because what they had done is they had planted grass on top of the buildings, on the roof, and they tied sheep up there. So from the air, it looked like a field.
Ah, good thinking on their part.
Very
anyway,
good
huh?
thinking, but it was a really nice German air base.
Okay, so going on for just a second. All right, so that was what your duty station was like. Now, you had this promise that you weren't going to Vietnam. Let me ask you a question. When did you go to Vietnam?
July 4th, 1971.
Isn't that funny, huh?
Well, what was interesting is so many of the people at this base, we had 4-year enlistments in the Army Security Agency because of the training that we had to go through. And all these guys are coming back to Germany from Vietnam. And I'm asking them, why were you in Vietnam when I was told you wouldn't be? And once they got done laughing, because they were in Vietnam, was you're not Army Security Agency in Vietnam, you are radio research over there. So we were codenamed.
Okay.
But everybody except the military knew what radio research was.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so you're in Vietnam, or you got your way getting over there. How did you get over there, first off?
That's interesting. Is flew back to the States, had a little break and little leave, and when I was in Germany, we did some traveling. We went to where The Sound of Music was filmed. We went to Salzburg, Austria. We went to Venice, Italy. Berchtesgaden Garmisch, which was Hitler's eagle's nest. And Berchtesgaden Garmisch was actually an in-country R&R center, and we actually went skiing in the Alps. So when I came back, met some friends of mine who, when we were in high school, we used to come up to Wausau and ski on Rib Mountain. And they were kind of giving me a hard time that they had been up to Upper Michigan, to Blackjack.
Right.
And I says, they're giving me, like I say, a hard time. And they says, did you do any skiing in the Army? I said, yeah. He said, well, where? I said, well, I think you may have heard of a little mountain called the Alps. We actually skied above the clouds, and they were kind of, you were in the Army?
Shut down then, huh?
You're in the Army and you did that? But then got out, I can't remember if we flew out of Fort Lewis, Washington. We got on a Flying Tiger Airlines.
Oh, yeah.
It was a civilian airline. And what was interesting is we left there and we stopped, I believe, in Alaska and Japan. And at one of those stops, there was like 2 planes going over to Vietnam and 2 were coming back. So we're in this huge hangar, and there's 500-600 GIs in there, and walking around, you don't know what's going on, but all of a sudden I hear my name called. And I turn around, and it's a guy that's coming home, coming back to the world,
All right.
that graduated a year ahead of me in high school.
Ah,
So we saw each other there, and we still talk about it today on Facebook and
yeah.
class reunions. But out in the middle of Alaska or Japan, here's a guy from a city of 7,000 people.
Right.
What are the chances?
Yeah. That's something you encounter a lot in the military. You run into people that you would least expect to see them.
Right. All of a sudden, there they are.
Well, what unit were you assigned to in Vietnam? Can you tell me, first off?
Yeah, we were. All these guys that were coming back from Germany kept saying to go to Nha Trang. That was the best duty station in Vietnam. So you fly into Saigon, spend some time there, and having had some time in Germany already, I knew that the sooner you got out of your barracks in the morning, the less chance of you doing KP was.
Okay. Yeah.
So get out and then check the board, and it's okay. Now you're going up north. You're going to Nha Trang. Oh, cool! This is a place everybody's telling me to go. It's such a good duty station. So once again, get up early in the morning, and you're gone. And I check the board, and it comes back, and it says I'm now assigned to a Chu Lai. I had no idea what a Chu Lai was, because I was supposed to be in Nha Trang, because that's the best place. And it ended up being a 328th radio research company at that time. We were in Chu Lai, and we only stayed there a short time. Then we ended up moving our mission to Da Nang
Oh, okay.
in Vietnam.
So, do you remember when you first arrived at the new location? I mean, anything really exciting happened or anything like that?
Well, you're flying, into country, and it's a beautiful, beautiful country from the air. It's just luscious green, and the plane touches down, and you're thinking, okay, you hear about the war here, and are we going to get shot at? Are we going to get rocketed? Is the air base going to get hit? But the first thing I remember is stepping off that plane is the heat.
Oh, yeah.
I actually arrived there on July 4th, and I'm thinking, I just hope we don't have a lot of fireworks
Yeah.
here right away.
Right.
But it was the heat that was so intense. It's like stepping, from air conditioning into a blast
Yeah,
furnace.
it knocked you right down. I remember that myself.
It was, 100 degrees and all of that.
Yep. What'd you do during the war? I mean, can you tell me that? Or what job assignments did you have?
At Fort Devens, I was a Morse code intercept operator, so that basically tells you what we did. But our unit was a military intelligence, and the old joke, that's an oxymoron.
Right.
We had Morse code intercept. We had linguists that would intercept. We had code breakers. We had guys that could write code. And when I say code, it's all the messages were encrypted. And we had traffic analysts. What they would do is take what information we were able to obtain, and then they would track it, who's talking to who. So basically about what can be said about what we did without getting in a lot of trouble.
I understand.
We all had top secret crypto clearances. That included the guys that worked on the equipment as well as us. And we listened to the bad guys,
Yeah.
told the good guys what the bad guys were saying, and where they were when
Where
they
they were, yeah.
when they were saying
That's
it.
a big thing.
And we had a lieutenant in the morning would go and brief the general every morning on what had transpired
Yep.
the night before.
Did you have any real close friends in your unit? Did you keep in touch with anybody after the war? or anything?
Had some very close friends. When I got over there, we were given a tent to stay in before we got into a hooch or a building.
Uh-huh.
And there were 2 guys that got there before me, a guy named Jim Parks and Paul, I can't think of his last name right now. But Jim Parks and I became very, very close friends. Matter of fact, when I was on leave, he was on leave, and I was best man at his wedding in California. And we still stay in touch.
Well, that's interesting.
And there were 5 of us. Once we finally got into a building, it was myself, it was Jim Parks, and the other guy was a guy named Paul Palmer. And the building that we had, miraculously had a bar in it.
Oh,
I don't know how that
what a
happened.
coincidence,
What a
huh?
coincidence. But there were 5 of us that worked together on a shift. And we worked like it was 2 to 10 or 3 to 11, but we worked the evenings. And it was myself, Jim Parks, B.J. Crawford, Doug McComb, and a guy by the name of Keith Mosier. Mosier was from New York, McCombs was from Arizona, Parks was from California, Crawford was from Tennessee, and I was from Wisconsin, so it's,
Well, that's amazing that you remember all their names and where they're from after all these years.
well, we do reunions.
Well, okay, yeah. Well, let me ask you a couple other things here. And this is, were there any casualties in your unit when you were there?
The interesting thing, the whole history of the unit, went back to like 1966, 67 time frame, when one unit went over there, and the second unit went over, and then they joined, and then a third unit joined and became the 328th. There was only one individual that died from the unit, and that was a lung infection that he got when he was in Vietnam. So there's only one of our people that's name is on the wall. Because we did have the top secret clearances, they didn't want us kind of wandering out in the bush or anything. But we did have people that were on fire bases and landing zones, doing their work further out into away from the main compound.
Well, were you injured at all over there? Did you sustain any injuries yourself?
No.
Oh, well, right. So it was like a vacation, huh?
Well, it's kind of a balmy vacation
Yeah.
with some good friends, let's put it that way.
How about medals or citations? Were you awarded any medals or citations?
Other than the normal citations you get from serving in Vietnam, I did get an Army Commendation Medal, an ARCOM, from the military.
So, Tom, were you awarded any medals or citations while you were over there?
Well, you got the usual citations, that you had served in country, and then I did receive the Army Commendation Medal for work that we performed.
Okay, yeah, that's
Off.
above and beyond. Or?
No, isn't that? it wasn't
Yeah, I
that
know.
good.
I know what you're saying. You can't say too much about it. What was your highest rank over there?
I made E5, which was a Spec 5 at that time, which is a rank that does not exist anymore.
Yeah.
But it was equivalent to a hard stripe sergeant, buck sergeant E5.
Okay.
We had a lot of specialists because in each unit you're only allowed so many what they call hard stripers or hard rank.
Okay.
So we had more people that were at higher levels. So they were made E5s or comparable to sergeants. However, they were a specialist or a Spec 5. So you had the same authority, but you were just not a hard striper.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's understandable. Okay. Tell us a little bit about what everyday life was like over there.
Well, everyday life in Vietnam was interesting to say the least. If you made it through the night without getting woke up early morning hours or things like that, our day, usually you started breakfast, then you'd prepare for your upcoming shift. We worked, like you said, 3 to 11 or 2 to 10. I can't remember what they were, but we worked the evenings. So during the day, you'd write your letters, or we actually had cassette tapes at that time, and you could record your letters and mail those home. And then you went to work, in the afternoon, and then we took a break at supper. So our compound in Chu Lai was all on one level. Da Nang, our work compound was up on top of a hill. Okay. Our buildings were all surrounded with concertina wire. We had MPs because people couldn't go in and out unless you had a security badge with you. And then we would do our missions, and then we get done at either 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And then they would have what they called the midnight meal, because there were other, like motor pools, MPs and stuff were working. So a lot of times you only get like 2 meals a day, so they had a night meal or a midnight meal. So you'd go up to the mess hall, And we would, stop at the mess hall on the way down because it started like around 10 and then we'll go till midnight. And then we would stop there and eat and then head back down to our hooches, our buildings. Well, interesting story happened one time was we were under a yellow alert, which means it was a possibility that we were going to get attacked that night, either sappers or rockets or whatever. And everybody had to be back in their hooches by, I think it was like 9 o'clock. Well, we didn't get done till 10 or 11, so we're walking down from the hill down to our hooches, and the MP stopped us. And, asked us name, rank, serial number, and said that we were going to get written up because we were violating the curfew rules. And I said, well, I was the trick chief or the sergeant at that time, so I was in charge of this group. And I said, well, we're coming from our operations building, just up the hill here. And she says, don't care, we're going to write you up. So, okay, fine. So we get back down to our compound, and the first place I go is commanding officers.
Okay.
Hooch.
Yeah.
Pulling on the door a little bit and just telling them that, we feel that the MPs are messing with us and they don't understand. And if we get written up, we would like that expunged from our record if you happen to see it. I remember earlier I told you we had a guy that briefed the general in the morning, and he liked to have full
Right.
reports
Yeah.
when he came in. So he said he would take care of it for us. So the next night we're under yellow alert again, and we're coming down, and a different MP stopped us and goes through the whole same thing with us. And he says, by the way, what unit are you from? And I said, well, 328th Radio Research. Would you like a ride? So instead of walking down the hill, we got a ride that night because the general kind of
General stepped in and
informed him that.
pulled him. Yeah, okay.
But you talk
Hey,
about-
you mentioned writing home. Did you write a lot of letters, or?
According to my wife and parents, no.
Yeah, yeah.
It's one of those situations where you're okay, but the news media that they get, the war is still going
Oh,
on,
right.
and they're getting the other side of the story. And it wasn't a situation like you have now with the internet where you got email and zip, 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 you got it. It was, 5, 6, 7 days
Right.
before
Yep.
the letters would get back to the States or, come back to us. So I tried to write as much as I could. However, my fiance at that time, and my wife now, she would write almost every day. And every so often to get a tape, from her, and from my folks would, send a tape every so often. But I was not the writing type.
Yeah.
And aunts and uncles here in Rapids, grandmother. I'd try to write as much as you could, but you never write.
Yeah.
You never write enough because you're in a war zone, and
Yeah.
it's
Believe
just-
me, I can relate to that. I was not a letter writer either.
But you try to do as best you can and keep track, and just let them know that you are alive and well. And
Right. I know what you're saying there, because the only reason I used to write at all was because it was free postage over
Right,
there.
yeah.
That was the thing.
yeah, you'd write free across the
Right.
top right-hand corner. And then what was so funny is my wife had saved some of the letters, and being in the military intelligence, we monitored. Well, actually, we had a sign. It was really kind of funny. It was a eagle sign, and he had little earphones on that said, "In God we trust, everybody else we monitor."
Right.
So I saw some of the letters that I had written home, and they had all been taped up. So our letters were being monitored, for lack of a better term. So it was very, very, very interesting.
Well, here's a question for you. What were your living conditions like? I mean, did you have a bunk? Did you have supplies? Did you have toothpaste, toiletries, etc.? Was that
Well-
all accessible for you?
Yeah, our living conditions, it was called a hooch, which was a long, narrow building with metal roof, and then you had sandbags on it, so when you had wind. And in the first hooch we had when we got to Da Nang, there were 5 of us, the 5 I mentioned earlier. Because we worked the same shift, we also lived in the same building all the time. Well, when we got to Da Nang, Typhoon Hester hit. And where our base was in Da Nang was kind of like a horseshoe
Okay.
of the mountains. So when this typhoon came through, it leveled our whole compound.
Oh my God.
So the only thing I remember, we came back, we had some guys that were in the operations building that stayed there, and the rest of us were in secure areas where we weren't going to get hit by flying metal and
Right.
whatever. But it was a flat deck, and our refrigerator was standing there. Little refrigerator
Okay.
was the only thing that was left.
Yeah.
But as far as supplies, we had pretty decent supplies. We had to go to because there was an air base, and the Air Force had much better buildings than the Army did.
Some of the best PXs over there.
The
Yeah.
best BXs that they had. So we were able to go there and get what we needed. Now, we're talking about 71 and 72. And in that time frame, things are starting to wind down
Right.
in Vietnam. So as far as supplies, they're now rationing. So we had ration cards for cigarettes and ration cards for beer.
Yeah.
And some of the only beer left at that time, if you got Budweiser, that was primo.
Okay.
But most of it was Carling Black Label,
Carling Black Label,
or we called
yeah.
it Carling Black Death. It wasn't the best stuff in the world, but it was all rationed out. And what was interesting was we went to the BX one day, and to get to the BX from where we were, we had to go around the airbase. And they collected all the cameras when we first went on the airbase.
Yeah.
Can we get these back? And they said, you can get them back when you come back through here, but you can't take them in there today. And being the inquisitive people that we were, why? We said, well, they're testing some new aircraft, and give us your cameras. So, okay, so gave them our cameras, and we're riding in a deuce and a half, and all of a sudden we see this plane coming down the runway, and then it went straight up. Just zips. Okay. Now we know why we
Yeah.
got cameras here.
Yeah.
But we got to the BX, and we're checking out, and many times Vietnamese civilians were the ones that were working the checkout, working at different jobs in the BXs and PXs and around the bases. And this one asked us, what unit you with? Because they always asked.
Right.
They always asked.
Yes.
And we said, well, 328th. She said, oh, you listen, Charlie. Well, we came back, we told the CO about this, and she was no longer working there
Oh, is that right?
because she was kind of, might not have been one of our friendliest people.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was just, it's so hard to tell, who the good guys and the bad guys were, but one of the interesting things, we talked about the midnight meal, and there was a Vietnamese guy that worked at the midnight meal. He was kind of the cleanup guy, and whenever he wasn't there at midnight, so we knew this guy wasn't going to be there, we're going to get rocketed. And so they didn't want to really get rid of him
Because they knew. Yeah.
because we used him as a monitor. And like I said, one of our reunions, they're talking to one of the past commanders, and he had set up a basketball court in the company compound
Right.
so that guys could play basketball.
Right.
Well, the guys that work days would play basketball when they're done, so they're playing. Well, then the guys that work mids would come and play basketball after they're done. It's like
Yeah.
10, 11 o'clock at night, they're playing basketball. Well, to play basketball at night, you have to have a light.
Sure.
That light lasted about a month.
Yeah.
Because they figured that is what the Viet Cong were using as their aiming point. And if they wanted to hit us, they would hit there. If they wanted to hit somebody else, they'd move. But that was the aiming point. So basketball games kind of ended.
Yeah.
At night in the unit.
Right. We used to show movies topside on an LST too for about a month, and then. Let me ask you a question. Now, this might seem a little bit. Well, I mean, it's obvious, but did you ever get homesick or didn't have the time?
Not really homesick, because the people you were with became your family.
Oh yeah.
They really did.
Yep.
I didn't have any brothers or sisters, so these guys were
Family.
my new
Yes.
family.
Yeah.
The first sergeant was your dad.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't know who his mother was, but the first sergeant was your dad. And the first sergeant we had was a fantastic man. I had an opportunity to talk to somebody yesterday that knew him later in his career. And he said he was one of the best first sergeants that he ever had.
Yeah.
And he has passed, but he ended up becoming the command sergeant major, top dog of the Army Security Agency before he passed on. And, had lieutenants that were the same age as we were.
Yeah.
Just that they were officers.
Right.
And what was so funny is your uncles were the sergeants. Because they were, oh my God, I think we're like between 20 and 23 years old. I mean, these sergeants were like 30.
Yeah.
They were old guys.
Yeah, that's right.
But that's, I didn't become homesick. I did take an R&R and did come home, which was a mistake because I came home in January.
Yeah. Why do you say, oh, okay, January, yeah, I can see. From
little
100 to 30 below, right?
Exactly. But not really homesick because, you had the letters, so you still had contact with your biological family.
Exactly.
But your newfound family was there with you all the time.
And going through the same thing you were going through. The stress level must have been pretty good over there, though, huh?
Well,
I mean, you're always keyed up.
You're keyed up because you don't know what's going to happen, number one. And because of the job that we had, if something was happening, like one evening, they were getting rid of old ammunition. Well, they blow this up. Well, we thought that was a rocket attack. And our orders were, if you remember what our jobs were, was to try to learn as much as we could, as quick as we could.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was actually a friendly situation that they were.
So it was just like, I can say this, the same thing with the Navy, as sometimes the word didn't come all the way down, right?
Not all the time, no. Or
it was expected to go up, but not always to go down.
It may have got detoured.
Yes,
or,
a couple of
or
times.
come into a dead-end street.
Did you have any good luck charms or anything like that you kept?
I actually took a 50-cent piece.
Over there?
Over with me.
Okay.
A Kennedy 50-cent piece. And I still have it.
And the same, okay, I was going to say the same one came back, huh?
Same one came back, and I still have it. And I carry a dog tag in my wallet. It's just mementos from, that time frame. But as far as, rabbit's foot or anything like that, no. But
Superstitions? Any superstitions?
nope.
I mean, nothing that really keyed into nothing like that. Well, what'd you do in your spare time? I mean,
Spare time.
You played basketball, I know, but
Basketball, we had a volleyball court in Da Nang. Because of our clearances, we couldn't travel alone a lot.
okay.
You had to be with somebody. Even if we went to, say for example, a doctor or a dentist, and they had to put you under, we had to have somebody there with us. So our spare time was interesting, to say the least, because we weren't really confined to the base as such. We just couldn't wander individually, so to say. But remember earlier I told you we had a guy from New York,
Yeah.
a guy from California, Arizona and Tennessee. Have you ever tried to teach people cheaphead?
Oh, listen, I watched that game for 30 years and never learned how to play it.
So I tried to teach 5 people sheephead. When we were done, at evening, we would come back to our hooch. We had somebody had a TV, and you could get AFVN, Armed Forces of Vietnam, or a Vietnamese channel.
Yeah.
Our linguist would watch one channel, we would watch the other one. But as far as everything that AFVN had was older. I remember coming down one night and hearing the theme song for All in the Family.
On the Vietnamese channel.
No, it was on the AFB channel,
okay.
but it was late. And then we played a lot of cards. Played a lot of hearts, little poker every now and then. Sheephead we gave up for a little while. Back, those other guys didn't like it at all. And then we just socialized because we had the hooch that everybody came to. Remember I told you we had a bar?
Right.
Well, we took that concept when we moved.
Okay.
We had a sign that said Glidden Hall. It was named after a guy by the name of Phil Glidden. Somebody put that up there. So I still got the sign. And sergeants would come in there, officers come in there, and we would just, it was a socialized.
Yeah.
Because we had one rule. We worked in the afternoons that we never see 7:30 in the morning.
Never. Okay. Yeah.
7:15 come and you go to bed.
Yeah.
But
I got
it's
you there.
A lot of relaxing because we couldn't talk about what we were doing.
Right. So
At that
a
time, 'cause
little
everything
bit
was-
of exaggeration too, maybe every
Well,
once in a while.
Sometimes, but we couldn't talk about what we were doing at that time. Many things have been unclassified or
Right.
declassified now. However, there's still some things that are classified that we still can't talk about, and that's been since 1972.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well.
Morse code intercept. The best way to describe it is AM radio. That station that you can hear about 4 stations down,
Right.
that's what our job was.
Okay. All right.
So we were, hearing loss and things like that. But
Did
interesting.
you get to any USO shows at all?
Got to see Bob Hope.
All right.
One of our guys had seen it before, so he stayed back. Fantastic show. It just such an uplifting time.
Yep.
We were on the side of a hill. We were, I don't know, 300 rows up was probably about the best way to put it. You could see Bob Hope down there was about this big, and the speakers. But that show was something you never forget.
Right.
It brought your spirits back. You're seeing people from the United States.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
And needless to say, Bob Hope, if you ever watch any of his specials, had a lot of good-looking ladies along with
Yes,
him.
he did.
I think Ann Margaret was there. There's another, the Hollywood starlets. Many of them turned into movie stars,
Right,
but this was
right,
at their
right.
young age. But that's one of the few USO shows. There had been some other ones that came through there. I believe Sammy Davis Jr. came through, but it was at a time frame where we were
Right.
on duty.
Yep.
We couldn't make it to that. And there may have been, I know one of our guys says there was a country, I think Boxcar Willie came through.
Oh, okay.
I didn't make that one either, but I was able to see Bob.
You know what? There was one question I wanted to ask you that something near and dear to both of us. Did you ever run into any Donut Dollies over there?
Yes. Donut Dollies, fantastic group of women. College graduates sent over there. The military wanted to bring a taste of home,
Right.
not just the USO shows, but like your sister, your cousin. Bring the female aspect back, the girl next door.
Right.
Because the only other females that were over there at that time were nurses.
Right.
And these Donut Dollies were with the Red Cross, went to the fire bases. They were on the helicopters. They would set up shows. They would just do a fantastic job for the soldiers and the staff, the people over there. And they would spend a year over there, subject to the same conditions we were. They rode in helicopters. They got shot at. They were on the fire bases. They got rocketed. Fantastic group of ladies. Just why they went in is to each one
Right.
their own reason why they went. But they spent a year or more in a war zone. And what saddens us is their lack of recognition
Exactly.
for their service to the country because the military asked them to go. Military asked us to go.
Right.
It's just that we went through basic training.
Exactly.
And they didn't, and they just don't have the discharge papers. But they were in the mud, the blood, and the beer with the rest of us.
Exactly.
They got rocketed. They were in the mud. They were in the trenches, so to say. They were in the bomb shelters.
And you know, for the whole period of time, there was only 627 of them ever served over there.
And
we know a couple.
yeah, we do it, and I appreciate the service they gave us because
Exactly.
it was fantastic.
Well, other than the friendships that you developed and the USO showing any, I mean, was there anything sticks out about a good time that you had over there in particular?
Well, there were a lot of good times. There were some sad times. The good times stick out in your mind. Just the camaraderie
Exactly.
that you have. My wife and I put on reunions for the unit.
Okay.
We put them on every 2 years. We travel all over the country. There are people that went over initially on the boat that started the unit. I was with the unit when it was deactivated. We're friends. We did not serve together. There's 4 years difference, 5 years difference. But just the camaraderie. Talk to any veteran that served, period. Whether it's overseas, in the States, combat zone, foreign war, or not. The closeness with each other is fantastic. One year was interesting is I had a class reunion in August. In September was our military reunion.
Okay.
I was closer to people I served 5 months or a year with than it was people that I spent 12 years with.
Yeah.
We had one thing in common here. The military people, a lot different, a lot, you just feel it. And
Exactly. And
the
that's
friendship,
probably why you're where you're at now with the VFW and the VBA and
Well,
everything else. I mean,
it's your brothers and sisters served.
Exactly.
I mean, in this show, I've interviewed Iraqi war vet. I've interviewed female. I've interviewed 2 female Marines. Interviewed a Donut Dolly. It's the respect, for what they did.
exactly.
Is the heart of military service, and there's a few of us from the Vietnam Veterans of America. We go to the high schools and we talk to the kids, and we tell them, we ask them, do you have anybody in your family that's a veteran? Thank them for their service, because when the first person walked to me and said thank you for your service, I was dumbstruck. Okay.
Yeah, what do you say,
What,
right?
what do you say? I know one gentleman here says, it was my pleasure. That's his response. So being a veteran, having, served your country is the greatest honor I think a person can have. And we tell the kids, if you learn something in the military. You learn to be a team. You can learn a profession. You can learn something, but I thought military was honorable.
Absolutely. I agree with you wholeheartedly. You mentioned that you came home on leave during the R&R. How long were you home?
We spent a few days in Hawaii, and then flew straight from Hawaii to Chicago. I was home maybe a week.
Just time enough for your body to adjust to the cold weather
Right.
and then go back to the hot.
Well,
right?
going back is when we stopped in California and stood up for my friend's wedding.
Okay.
But in Waupun, every noon, the whistle goes off.
Okay.
Similar whistle to when you're going to get rocketed. So, you're walking through the house, do-do-do, and all of a sudden you hear this whistle go off, and now you're on the floor.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking at you like you're nuts, but it's because, you're...
Right. You're acclimated to that. You just hear the whistle and do what you got to do, right?
Well, even now, somebody pops a balloon or sets off fireworks, still makes you a little bit.
Sure.
It's been a lot of
especially
years.
in this day and age too, with
Right.
what's going on in
You
the
don't know
country.
who's who anymore.
Well, when you got done with your year over there and you're getting ready to go home, did you ever get that short timers? I'm ready to go home now. I mean,
Well-
what did you do when you first?
What was interesting is, like I said, we were in Chulai. They shut our mission down. They moved it to Da Nang.
Okay.
So they shut the mission down in Da Nang, and then we moved to Phu up by the DMZ.
Okay.
And then they moved the mission that I had to Udon, Thailand. So I spent 11 months in Vietnam, 1 month in Thailand. And they said, well, if you extend for another 6 months here, you can get out early. And I said, I've been to Germany, I've been to Vietnam, I've been to Thailand, I want to go to the States. So came back to the States, or the world, as we call it.
Yeah.
It's called the world. And we were stationed in Vent Hill Farms, Virginia. Coming home was interesting because nowadays, when you hear of units going to Iraq, Afghanistan, they go as a unit.
Right.
We went over individually. We came home individually. So it's you alone.
Right.
I didn't run into any direct protests as such. Did run into a few Hare Krishna guys. The guys that were dressed up in orange.
Oh yeah.
Hare
Yep.
Krishna and Hare in the airports. They were, protesting. But then they said we got back and we went to Vent Hill Farms, Virginia, which is just outside of Washington, D.C. And so happened that that's where our guys came back to.
Oh,
So
okay.
the guy stood up for his wedding. He's there.
Yeah.
Paul Palmer's there. And all these other guys are there. And our first sergeant is there.
All right.
So we're still
Together as a unit.
still
basically,
together
Yeah.
as a group. Ended up getting married when we were in Virginia and did a lot of trips to Washington, D.C.
So when you got out, you're out now. You're back to the world. You're in civilian life, and you're gonna whip the world. That's what everybody thinks when they get out. Did you go to school when you went back? Did you go back to school at all?
After I got out, we came back to Waupun and got a job at the state prison. I was a prison guard for a little over a year and a half. And then I got a job at the Waupun PD. And then I started to go to school because there were 3 of us that were taking classes
Okay.
at a tech college, at Marine Park Technical College. And I did it under the GI Bill.
Okay, I was going to ask you if you took advantage of the
Yes,
GI Bill.
I
at all.
did. Took advantage of that. Took advantage of a GI Bill or a VA loan. Did some work in our house down in Waupun at the time. And then job here in Grand Rapids came up, so we moved back to what my wife was from Beaver Dam, Waupun area. She was born in Beaver Dam, grew up in Waupun. I was born in Rapids, so I came back because here's my dad's family was pretty much up here and got a job at the Grand Rapids PD. Finished out my degree, my first one, my associate's degree in police science. And then later on, somebody asked me, well, you're going back to school and you're over 50 years old. I said, yeah, it's brain rust.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
So I went back to school and got a supervisory management associate's degree, all under the GI Bill. So I did take
Yeah,
advantage
I'll
of
tell
it.
you, that GI Bill has provided a lot of good education for a lot of people. Well, here you go. This is a big one. This is a big question I've been waiting to ask you all along. What lessons did you learn in the military that served you best since you got out of the military?
Respect. Respect for others. Working with people. Getting involved. Like you mentioned, with the VFW.
Right.
I'm with a lot of other veterans organizations, and I think the biggest thing I learned is to respect others and to hear all sides. Being in law enforcement, being in security,
Right.
Listening, hearing what's being said, hearing what's not being said.
Not being said, right.
But just camaraderie and respect.
Well, I think a lot of us learned that, and a lot of us learned it the hard way, too.
Very true.
Well, I got a couple more questions, and then we'll let you relax the rest of it. One of them I was going to ask you was about veterans organizations, but just tell us what organizations you belong to.
I belong to the VFW, Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 101. Our military reunion, we put that on. I am the chairman of the Wood County Veteran Service Commission. Just got appointed to the Selective Service Commission for Wood, Adams, and I believe Juneau County.
Okay.
It's just something that started up. That's the organizations I belong to.
Okay, and do you hold any officers' positions in any of those organizations? I mean,
yeah, I'm the secretary of the Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 101, and the senior vice commander of VFW Post 2534, Buckley Baldwin here in Rapids. And my wife and I are chairman for life of our reunion group.
well, that was going to be one of my questions. Do you go to any reunions? But obviously you do if you organize them.
Yeah, this will be, I think, our 10th.
Okay, I got one final question for you, Tom. Is there anything you'd like to mention about your service or anything else since to our viewers?
I'm proud to have served. I would do it again,
Okay.
but I think I'm a little out of shape.
Yeah, I think so. I think we both might
doing
not
push-ups.
pass the physical.
Yeah, the physical or push-ups, but you talk to any veteran, or I would say maybe the majority of veterans would do it again, would serve again. And for any veterans that are watching this, please go to the VA, get in the system, especially if you are a Vietnam veteran.
That's right.
Because of the Agent Orange physical, you get once a year, a free physical. They catch it early, and get involved. Just, when we came home, we just blended into the group.
Exactly.
And veterans found other veterans.
Right.
And we could talk to each other. If you're a veteran, get involved. VFW, we don't fight the war over again. Vietnam Veterans of America, we don't fight the war over again. We do things for the community, and we do things for each other.
Right.
That's the biggest thing, is stay involved with veterans.
Well, Tom, about all I can say is thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you for doing this, Bill. I really appreciate
Okay,
it.
thank you.